Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with chili dog mac and cheese. That's right, I tried to create a casserole combining two of my favorite things to eat, which was wildly successful, but at the same time, totally did not work. And I will explain that contradiction as we move through the video. But bottom line, this was a delicious thing to eat. So with that, let's go ahead and get started by tossing some ground beef into a pot that we have set over high heat, in which we've drizzled a little bit of olive oil. And what we'll do is take a spoon or spatula and break that up into small pieces. And yes, sometimes we use a potato masher to get the pieces really small, but here we're not going to need to do that, since what we'll do once we get it down to about this size is toss in our diced onion along with some salt, and we will go ahead and continue to cook stirring for about 5 minutes or so, or until those onions go from crisp and bright white to sort of soft and translucent. And you'll see as that happens, that beef's going to continue to break up, and by the time our onions have cooked long enough, our meat should be a nice small perfectly sized crumbles, which hopefully look a little something like this. And once that's happened, we'll go ahead and stop and toss in our spices, which will of course include a whole bunch of chili powder, some ground cumin, some smoked paprika. We will also want to do a little bit of freshly ground black pepper, as well as a little touch of cayenne. And then we can't forget every chili recipe's secret ingredient, which is a little bit of cinnamon. And then we'll finish up with a nice big pinch of dry oregano, preferably Mexican if you can get it, since it's so fragrant and has a wonderful flavor. And then besides the herbs and spices, we can also toss in our minced garlic at this point. And we will go ahead and stir everything together, and then cook this for about a minute or two, just to take the raw edge off that garlic and give those spices a little bit of time to wake up. And once we feel like that's happened, we can go ahead and add some diced green peppers. And I use some fresh poblano, but some canned or jarred roasted peppers would be fine. And then I followed that with way too many sliced hot dogs. Okay, this was an experiment, so I was just guessing, and I guessed a little bit wrong, and this ended up being too much. But it was close, and I will give you the right amount in the written recipe. But anyway, to finish up the chili dog part of the recipe, we will add some crushed tomatoes, along with a couple cups of fresh cold water that we can use to rinse out the can they came in. And then what we'll do is give this a stir and wait for it to come up to a simmer. And we are still over high heat. And no, we didn't forget the beans. There are no beans involved in a real chili dog, or a real chili if you talk to my friends from Texas. So we're just going straight meat. And then what we'll do once this does start simmering is give it a stir, and we'll reduce our heat to medium-low. And we will let this simmer for about 30 minutes, or until we're happy with how it looks, feels, and tastes. And sure, you could cook this longer if you wanted, but I would say 30 minutes is the minimum. And then towards the end of the chili cooking time, once we think we're getting close, we will want to boil a couple cups of elbow macaroni in salted water, about 1 minute less than the package directions, since of course the pasta is going to bake in the casserole and continue cooking. And if you're not into elbows, use whatever macaroni you want, but I just think this is the perfect size and shape for what we're trying to do. And then once our pasta is almost but not quite cooked, we'll go ahead and turn the heat off under our chili, and then we'll use a strainer to transfer that in, which is the method I prefer, since a little bit of that water is coming with it. But you could, if you want, just drain the macaroni and dump it all in. But either way, once our hot dog flavored chili has been macked, we will take a spoon and give it a mix until everything's evenly combined. And again, the heat is off. And then once that's been thoughtfully mixed, we will pick that up and carefully transfer it into a large casserole dish. And be careful, don't splash the camera, or your kids' camera. So dump that in slowly and safely. And then what we'll do is go ahead and transfer in about 60% of our cheese. And for this, I used half sharp cheddar and half Monterey Jack, which of course I grated myself, since there's no excuse not to. And the game plan here is to stir about 60% of the cheese into the chili, mixing that in as evenly as we can. And then once that's been accomplished, we will top our casserole with the other 40% of the cheese. And please do not try to measure the cheese and get exactly 60 and 40%. Just eyeball it and get it close. That's all we ever ask. And then after 6/10 have been stirred in, We'll take the other 40% and sprinkle it over the top. And then we're not going to stir, but we're definitely going to give it the old poka with the tip of the spoon, just to sort of push it down into that surface a little bit. And that's it. Once our top has been cheesed and poked, this is now ready to transfer into the center of a 400-degree oven for about 30 to 35 minutes, or until everything's heated through and our cheese is melted and the sides are bubbling, and it hopefully looks like this. Oh yeah, now that is a handsome casserole. But does it taste like something called chili dog mac and cheese? Well, you know what? We're going to have to wait a few minutes to find out, because gigantic casseroles like this need to sit for at least 15 minutes before we try to serve. Okay, we have to let things cool down a little bit. So I did let mine rest for about 15 minutes, at which point I garnished the top with some freshly sliced green onions. And after taking a few pictures, I grabbed a spoon and dug in and served up a portion so I could go in for the official taste to see how we did. And I did go ahead and add some additional onions to the top of the plated portion, since I always like to top my chili dogs with some kind of onions. But anyway, I grabbed a fork and started eating and analyzing. And I am very happy to report this was absolutely delicious, and I thoroughly enjoyed everything about it, except as I mentioned earlier, I did put too many hot dogs in. So I thought that element was a little bit overpowering, especially since the hot dogs I used were kind of on the smoky side. So as a Michelin star chef might say, this was a little bit hot dog forward. But other than that, I thought this was great, which is why in the intro I described this as very successful. However, the part that wasn't successful is that this really didn't taste like chili dogs or mac and cheese, which I found a little bit surprising. I mean, for obvious reasons, we do have the flavor profile of a chili dog, or more accurately, a chili cheese dog. But having said that, I was not feeling a full chili dog experience. And then I guess because we didn't use a white sauce for the macaroni and cheese part, this really did not have a mac and cheese vibe. Right? What this most closely reminded me of was American goulash. So I could have called this American goulash with hot dogs, or chili dog goulash. But truth be told, neither of those names was going to garner as much interest as chili dog mac and cheese. So please pardon the possible false advertising, but that is the name I went with. So to summarize, my attempt to make chili dog mac and cheese that actually tasted like both things, that was a fail. But I do not regret trying. And like I said, we did end up with something delicious to eat. So if you have an idea like this, do not be afraid to try it. I mean, you are, after all, the lot of shooting your shot. And the only experimental recipes we really should be disappointed in are the ones we don't even try. So with all that in mind, I will end this video by still saying, I really do hope you give this a try soon. So please follow the links below for the ingredient amounts, a printable written recipe, and much more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.